Okay, yeah. I wonder if we do side by side, are we able to control how big each one is? Let's see.
We have a newer Zoom. I mean, actually, it's not that new. Once we went to this other industrial Zoom, I didn't play with the controls anymore.
I think if I put it over here in maybe the bottom left, it might cut off my slide title, but let's try that. Well. Okay, but. Okay, let's try that, I guess. Okay, hello, hello, hello. I don't know if it's going to do it.
Oh, wait. So back then, what was background only? As background.
As background?
Oh, that's going to, that looks the worst.
Yeah, well, it still isn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There probably is a way that participants,
Oh, please. Please do. I'm no expert in this.
participants show the participants but still share the screen. So nope, it is not. It is not. We're getting a little creative here, and I'm not meaning to.
What if we do?
Speaker view.
Yeah, maybe what we do
But that's
is.
not your presentation.
Well, what if we? Oh yeah. Wait, can we go to immersive?
That's what I just.
Oh, that's what you just tried?
That was the. We're trying to get it where we can see him and also the. So speaker, but then yeah. Screen sharing. So new share. Maybe we could do.
Oh, maybe yeah. Application windows. That makes sense.
Application windows, yeah.
That makes sense, and then.
Share. But then we could make this smaller, I guess. And yeah, I don't know if it's gonna
Here, let
work
me
that
stop
way.
the screen share. So if I share my whole screen, maybe what I could do is.
Have him pop out.
Yeah, like
Actually,
maybe.
I bet that's possible. It might be possible.
Well, what if I make this small? And then I do like exit out of this. And then if I move that over here.
Oh, we could do the. Actually, and I have another idea too.
Okay. Should we try?
Because of the way you're doing this, so we
Here,
could
you do it.
like.
You do it.
Do you have the different layouts possibly normally?
Yes.
Why is it not coming up for me?
Here, pull it to the side,
Oh, I see it.
and then we can do that, and then maybe we can
Make it bigger. Oh yeah.
make it bigger. And then I'm wondering if we do Control L. Oh no,
Dang it.
no.
Okay.
Okay. Well, but that's pretty good, right?
That is pretty good.
Oh. Man, that kind of sucks, actually. Don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we present. What if we have JP introduce himself and then
Switch.
we switch?
That's fine.
Okay.
So we do need to be sharing the whole screen though, and not just an application, because otherwise it's
Okay.
just we're not gonna see him. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Zoom.
I think so. Hey, Lana.
Video. Wait, more. I turned your video off. That's not what I was trying to do. Share.
So maybe we do make this bigger again. Okay.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
It's okay.
You know what you're doing.
That's okay. That's okay. So I'm just gonna make this big, and then
And then go to the share screen options.
yes, and then I'm gonna make this big, and then I'm gonna do share entire screen, and then maybe what we can do is oh, look at that.
Oh, that's
And then
perfect.
maybe I can make this bigger.
Well, if you make this too, if you go to full screen in this, will that hide it now?
Let's see. Yay! Okay, Great.
Can you drag it and make it bigger? Oh my gosh, we're way too excited about that.
I know, right?
You know little wins, right?
Yeah.
Little wins.
So let's see. Okay. So JP, we just figured out how we can see you and the full screen at the same time. So yeah, that was a win.
We still don't have Kate. So
Kate's on her way, she said.
a couple minutes.
Yeah.
On our way from where?
She said she was on her way at 11:30. So
That's what she did. She did say that.
she did say she was on her way at 11:30. So hi, how's it going? Good, good. You're gonna recognize a lot of this. Thank you for coming. I know I mean, you have to be here, kind of. You kind of have to be here. So it's like, I need to send that text right now. I can't believe I haven't been able to yet. I mean, it was like so late, but good. How are you? Good, thank you for coming. Yeah. Okay, we're just waiting on Kate. Excuse me. Whew. Oh man, I will never get over the nerves of public speaking. It's like
I can hear
every
myself.
time. It's just like
Oh, okay. Good.
you would
Okay,
think
and
like
then you just
with
clip it
so
on,
like
and
all
then
of us
should
have so
we
much
have it
experience
there?
public speaking that so magically it
Hello,
would just
hello?
go away. But
Yeah.
it's never the case. Exactly.
Also, how do you usually know, like, who do you usually talk to whenever you come in to, like, know? Because I don't know anyone who's in here right now.
I'm assuming it's going to know who the person is when she gets here.
Okay.
As of the moment, I don't. But also, I want to go get that chair. There's one more chair at the edge over there, and I definitely want that to be for me.
Yeah.
I understand.
So we're going to start with and
Okay, yeah.
give him this, and
Yeah,
I'm going to have to go
totally.
run it and get her mic'd up. So I'll move my food out of the way and stuff here in just a
I'm
second.
sorry? Yeah. Oh,
Is that her?
who's that? No.
Just push it closed. Cool. I'll allow you to hold that. It's live. Read the introduction and then
It's live now? Or you
just yeah, but don't. I'm gonna edit it out. Okay. But I'm gonna move this a little bit so that it can be clearly heard.
Okay.
If you would like to just set it down, I'll run over here. Okay. Discreetly.
Can we wait like 2 more minutes? Or you want to go ahead and get started? Okay.
We'll give it a minute.
Okay, we'll give it a minute. Okay. All right. I just hate to start without her.
What?
I just hate to start without her, but
I understand that, but yeah, it's the
I understand.
nature of studio.
Okay.
Okay, Eric, you've got 60 more seconds to make as much noise as you want, and then we'll start.
Who's that making noise?
Anybody who's here. Or you, JP.
Hey, Alan.
I hear Sarah.
Oh, there she is. That's
How are you?
How are you?
Okay, we are now happily a quorum. So my name's Alan Shearer. I'm the school's Associate Dean for Research and Technology, and I get the pleasure of welcoming you to today's Center for American Architecture and Design Forum. As always, forums are chances for faculty to share work that's mature, but not necessarily quite finished. And this semester, we're looking at the topic of collaborations. How does 1 and 1 not just be 2, but 3 or 50? Today's collaboration is with Assistant Professor Ria Bravo. Ria's in our interior design program. Her work goes everything from furniture to interiors to architecture. Some of you might have seen some of her experience from her work at things like Portlandia. So she's here with the school, and I think part of her work has been supported also by the Snell Transportation Fund. Also in our room with us is Kate Catterall, who I've known for many years now, associate professor in the School of Design and Creative Technologies. Kate was trained as in sort of in art and industrial design. Her work goes from fashion to small homes to gardens. A couple of years ago now, still, well, 3 years ago, she did this wonderful project called Drawing the Ring of Steel. The Ring of Steel was the barriers in Belfast. And so it was a chance to both look back and see how the city has changed. And joining us online in the upper left is JP Clark. JP is the Ernest Cockrell Jr. Memorial Professor in the Cockrell School. His home department is aerospace engineering and engineering mechanics. JP's collaborated with the school on several projects already, looking at the City of Austin's combined transportation emergency call center. That's a chance to look at how interiors of how you put people in space deal with stochastic processes of calls coming in fast and furious. So a very complex problem. With that, I'm going to leave it to them to talk about how they are rethinking the entire future of aircraft interiors. So please join me in welcoming our speakers today.
Okay, thank you all so much for being here this afternoon. First, we'd like to take a moment to express our gratitude toward the Center for Sustainable Development that really initiated this collaboration and granted us the funding to make it possible. So our design research project proposes a new typology of aircraft, asking how a redesign of its interior can offer a more comfortable, inclusive, and dignified experience. As Alan mentioned, the project was developed in collaboration from colleagues at the School of Architecture and the School of Design and Creative Technologies here at UT Austin, as well as with industry partners at Collins Aerospace. I'd also like to take a moment to give a huge shout out to our graduate research assistant, Raha Shavasian, who played a very significant role in making this project happen. So. Here's the team, here's all of us. Not joining us today is another research assistant who has since graduated, Phillips Peters, who is also in the School of Design and Creative Technology, and then Glenn Johnson, who is a senior technical fellow at Collins Aerospace. And JP, I'll let you take it away from here for a moment.
Sure. Let me just say a little bit about the nibble or the pebble that became the pearl of this project. So, as I don't know if many of you can't see my entire body, which is probably, but I'm not a small guy. This issue of boarding airplanes and seats has been a problem for me all of my life. And so I love this. I sought out this opportunity with Alan's help to figure out a way to bring the right people together to look at a problem that's interdisciplinary. And part of that is my background is in systems engineering, as many people in aerospace are. And having taught systems engineering and done systems engineering, one thing you quickly realize is that one person or one entity never has all the things that they need to actually solve a problem, especially a complex problem. And the other thing that you notice is that you need to have interdisciplinary design teams. And that's one of the things that we've seen in aerospace over the years, that having all the people working in parallel together as a team is way better than one entity doing something, then throwing it over the wall to another entity and so forth. And so this interdisciplinary team, as you will see, brought together the people who are the engineering types, like me, who are all about the numbers and the efficiency and, thinking about the physical implications for operations, with the folks who are interested, like Rhea, in the interior design and making sure things look just that right and capture those things that we engineers don't really think too much about. And then of course, Kate, who is in the product. So I think it's been an incredible opportunity for me to learn a lot from the others on the team. And I hope I've been able to contribute some to the conversation. But I think that wasn't the key thing in this project for me. That was just, I would not, people have thought about this problem for a long time. And I think this collaboration has really made a significant dent in a problem that's been thought about. And that was reflected in the fact that, as she mentioned, Glenn, from Collins Aerospace, we reached out to him, and he just wanted a consult, and immediately upon the first call, he got so excited. He's like, "When is our next meeting?" And so he's been involved, and he's the guy who is at Collins, is the tech fellow in charge of all their new designs that go out to pitch to airlines, all the different interiors that we fly on. He's the person developing those. So that for me is a key thing to take away from this collaboration, that the solution we came up with would not have happened with any one of us or any two of us by ourselves. The three of us and the three viewpoints have been instrumental to get this done. So from my perspective, I will start from engineering. As Alan mentioned, I'm in aerospace, but I'm also an optimization. In fact, I was at Georgia Tech for about 16 years, and I was a joint performing industrial engineering, but mostly primarily in optimization, OR. But I also have been leading the AAA efforts on human machine teaming, as well as I've been looking at different, as Alan said, circulation and layout and efficiency. I've also done a period of work on sustainability as well. And even designed a hydrogen-powered airplane. So, which is that one? Yes, actually, that's the yeah. I have to see the graphic. That's the engine, the hydrogen-powered airplane engine that I designed as one of the startups that I had. And so I've had a very interest, but it's all been focused on aerospace and everything related to planes. And so there's a natural hit for me in this particular project. So over to you, Ria.
Sure, yes. So obviously, I really leveraged my interior design expertise and really considered things like the seating design, circulation, and really how to make the experience of air travel more human. Really trying to prioritize the body, comfort, grounding the project in materials and construction, and really considering the interior as adaptive, participatory, and cultural.
And Phil and I brought another range of expertise in. Phil was actually an architect in his previous lifetime, so he crossed over with you quite a lot. But we were looking at how people want to experience the air travel and how we might change that. And it overlapped very interestingly with some of the things that JP was talking about, like how to get people on and off the aircraft faster. And so we ended up having very productive conversations about that and initiating this two-aisle aircraft option. But yeah, very interdisciplinary background.
So, you know, one of the other things that I've done in my colloquial spare time, in addition to doing research, is to chair the board of an airline. And having that airline experience over the years, you know, getting people on and off the airplane is a key factor. You know, if you think about it, having one door, like we do mostly here, even going from, you know, having stairs at the front and the back, having one door because of jetways, has significantly limited the rate at which we can get people on and off. And of course, you know, you have people who have the aisle seat and they board and they put their things in the overhead and the next person has to come on and you have to get up and block the aisle. So it's a very complicated process and a very laborious and sometimes contentious process getting on and off over there. And so one of the things that you postulated, what would happen if you could get what is now a single aisle airplane and turn that into a two-aisle airplane? If that was the case, you could off and unload and offload much quicker than you would now, and the turn time would be limited, would get lower, and airplanes make money when they're flying, not when they're sitting at the gate. And so that would be, from an economic perspective, that would be a huge boost. But the other thing is that, you know, people talk about the fact that airplanes seem to have gotten smaller over the last 80 years. I gotta tell you, I think we've gotten a little bit bigger. That's the first thing. Because the fuselage of the 737 is the same as the fuselage of the 757, is the same as the fuselage of the 727, and about an inch or so different from the fuselage of the 707. So basically, the fuselage haven't changed. We haven't changed. We have gotten bigger on average. But the other thing is that back when airplanes were being flown in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the load factor, number of airplane people, fraction of the airplane that was filled, was typically around 60%, low 60%. I don't think any of us have been on an airplane with lower than an 85 or 90% load factor recently. So what that means is that if you're at a two-thirds load factor in a single aisle airplane, it means that every center seat is empty. So the airplane didn't look as narrow as it does now, not because the fuselage has changed, but because the load factors have changed and we have changed. And the other thing is that airlines have packed in people going from front to back with tighter seat pitch, and you can see that on the bottom right of your screen. Which they've basically gone down to the legal lower limit, which is like 29 inches in a few airlines, which means that if you have any leg length at all, your knees are up in the chair in front of you, or in the case indicated, up above your head, because you just can barely fit in. So these were the motivating factors in our work, which is, you know, we have now, and deregulation in 1978 means that airlines have to compete on price, which is the motivation for packing them with higher load factors and tighter seat pitch. So we were really motivated for the need to really make air travel a good experience, or to give everybody a premium experience. We like to say first class experience, but in truth, a premium experience, and to make traveling better and more appealing. And research and the data and the real world has shown that people like premium experiences, and some people are willing to pay a lot of money for those premium experiences. However, not all can afford it, so we're trying to figure out how to avoid the neck pains and the cramped quarters and the poor circulation of having a lot of people stacked into an airplane in very close quarters.
And so, as part of our discussion, we really talked about, our kind of collective frustrations with air travel, and we also spoke about how these challenges are especially severe with people that fall outside of the average of size and ability and needs. And so we really wanted to use these pain points as a kind of motivating factor and, really have a chance to respond to some of these issues.
So, go ahead.
Go ahead, JP, please.
No, sorry, no. So the other thing is that, this is your typical single aisle. We've all seen this. But if you look at the single aisle airplanes we have, I mentioned the 737 being the same fuselage as the 707, effectively. And it was designed in the late 50s, it was 60s actually. So not much has changed in terms of the tube and wing layout. And the 737 has come to the end of its lifetime in terms of the design. The 320s are coming to the end of their lifetime. And so you see aircraft manufacturers looking about what's the next generation of single aisle or mid-market is probably a better way of saying aircraft. And so we have an opportunity here to really influence the thinking about how you do aircraft interiors. And so, it's not in any good research project, not only should there be a problem identified or a methodology for coming up with a solution, but you should also identify the opportunity for turning that into practice. And that's especially true, I can say, from an engineer's point of view, that the difference between a scientist and an engineer is a scientist wants to know why. An engineer wants to figure out, now that I know why, how do I make a change that is better from some perspective? And I know in the School of Architecture, that's the same ethos. And I think in going back to the teamwork, that's probably one of the reasons why the team works so well, because we're all focused on coming up with a product that makes a difference in the world.
And so we spent a lot of time discussing as a group, really, how to, really dial in on what our vision was. And so it was really through many different conversations that we sort of created this slogan, which was, how do we create a first-class experience for everyone? So not just reserving comfort for the privileged few that could pay for it, but actually thinking about regular people that are traveling in economy class, how do we kind of grant them that same comfort and luxury?
So it's sort of business plus for the whole plane. Yeah.
And then, the other thing that we wanted to do was really try to ground the study in some existing literature and research. There was one particular study by Nassim Ahmodpour and colleagues that stood out, which really tried to dial in what the kind of elements of passenger comfort were and ways to measure them. And so our project, of course, is not an empirical study, but these are some considerations that really motivated our design research proposal. And a few in particular, or at least using their language, would be peace of mind, physical well-being, and proxemics. So thinking about privacy, the kind of perception of someone's personal space, how do we support the body, avoid fatigue and pain, and create a kind of sense of security and ease within their air travel experience. The other important exercise that we underwent as a group was to really consider what our redesign principles were. And so we spent a lot of time talking about this. Obviously, the catalyst for the project was really about streamlining boarding and circulation. And, you know, we really thought about the kind of why and how behind each one of these principles.
Yeah. And we were thinking about how to make the overall the overall design more sustainable, as well as making the experience better. And I think what we realized in the end was that we could lower the number of passengers on the plane. If we could get them on and off faster, we'd break even on cost. So, and we could also make the interior lighter. So all of those factors would free up opportunities to make it a better experience.
We also thought a lot about passenger comfort, because as you know, we've all experienced the kind of experience of air travel has become rather dehumanized. You're sort of, you know, shepherded into these lines like cattle in many ways. And so we really wanted to restore a kind of sense of dignity within this experience.
Yeah. Especially, you know, if you think EasyJet and you were talking about Spirit, it really does feel like it's worse than a bus station. So how do we bring back some of that dignity, so that whenever you arrive, you're not totally exhausted, and that you choose to fly again with this airline? It's going to be a boost for the airline if they can really differentiate themselves from others in this particular way.
Privacy was another major concern, so we were really thinking about orientation as a way to create more buffers and privacy within our proposal, and, you know, really trying to elevate the design as much as we could, and use things like light and materiality to elevate the design.
Yeah, and texture, and also getting out to go to the bathroom on a sort of 4-hour flight and not having to climb over someone else was a major factor in designing this space. And bringing on and off wheelchairs so that there were really accessible seats that could be used, but it wasn't a very different process to board, so it was more integrated into the average boarding experience, and also folks with kids. So we were thinking very broadly about who would be more comfortable in this environment.
Definitely. And really our process as a team, you know, we were working in a really divergent way at the beginning of the project, and so we wanted to explore as many configurations as we could, and really study all the kind of pros and cons and weigh those. And so we, you know, really tried to, you know, consider, you know, the capacity, the amount of privacy achieved, you know, thinking about certain clearances that we had to hold. And we really ran the team almost like a design studio for almost a full school year. And each week we were, you know, redlining, making adjustments, and kind of iterating. And we have to really thank Raha for all of her efforts in these exercises.
Yeah, we spent maybe the first months gathering as much research as we possibly could. And there are lots of technical sort of restrictions, which we were all, other than JP, unfamiliar with, and we had to know what questions to ask of him to help us define parameters.
Right.
And then every week we had a new version of the design and markups, and both of you would go back and add adjustments and bring it back to the table.
Yeah, we all had to sort of pretend that we were engineers at the start, just to kind of, because we had never designed an aircraft interior, so it really took us a while to just even get familiar with this kind of territory.
Yeah.
We also started with, after that series, or sort of at the same time, we really were using full-scale prototypes as a way to research as well.
We had sort of configurations that we thought might be viable, but we had to really test out what does it mean to sit in herringbone shape, and how much knee room do you actually need, and does it actually facilitate the things that it looked like it did in plan. But as we all sat there, Raha and JP and myself went in, and we were sort of, and Phil, and we documented it, taped it out on the floor to extend the pattern, and we were pretty sure by the end of this phase that we could apply the herringbone.
And eventually we, you know, through this prototyping exercise, we really landed on a set of design guidelines and constraints that tried to balance all of these considerations. And so even just a 1 degree change in the angle of the seat made a really big difference in the kind of level of comfort it achieved. And we were thinking a lot about kind of adjacency, orientation, privacy as we were studying all of these things.
We
you know,
also discovered that a fixed angle chair is much lighter. Obviously, it doesn't have the mechanisms for reclining, and it would be more economical, and so it would meet 2 of our major criteria.
And
I
so,
would add that we also have it that each chair has their own, each seat has their own armrest. So we get to avoid the fighting over armrests, which I think is probably the most popular sport in that.
you're right, JP, that's super important.
And you can tell we had a good laugh doing this as well, because we had lots of anecdotes. Yeah.
And so eventually we landed on 6 different schemes, and really, like I mentioned before, we were trying to evaluate all of them and trying to identify which schemes could actually be viable. And around this time, our industry partner at Collins Aerospace really joined the conversation, and also, helped us identify that there were 2 schemes in particular that could be a very attractive next generation model.
Because at a certain point, we couldn't evaluate it anymore. We needed that outside voice
Right.
and eyes on the project, and it was super helpful.
Right. Yeah, and sort of validating the project in a way. I mean, he sort of subsidized our confidence in it. And so, yeah, we narrowed it down to 2 schemes that we've been referring to as the herringbone and the air train. And so, we liked the herringbone configuration because it really provided the most amount of privacy and independence. You definitely wouldn't have to crawl over someone to get to the restroom, for instance. Everyone has their kind of own individualized personal seat. And then the other scheme that we identified, we've been referring to as the air train, which is a pretty a radical change in usually the kind of very standardized seating grid for an aircraft cabin, and we imagined that it would feel much more like riding on a nice train than being kind of crammed and stuffed into a kind of conventional cabin. And because we had to choose one scheme in particular to keep evolving, we chose the herringbone to move forward into the design, and so we knew that we didn't want the study to just stop at these kind of planned configurations, but we really wanted to visualize this in 3D and to actually be able to kind of at least roughly or conceptually design this 3-dimensionally. And so,
And JP was sort of prompting us, and we were trying to think about how do carts go up and down this, all the existing processes that need to happen on the aircraft. How do we do this? Which allowed for conversations about a suspension rail for carts to go down, and rethinking all of those practices as well. Some of which aren't in, I just remembered it as you were talking about it. They're not actually in this, but there are opportunities for other, design opportunities for later.
totally.
Yeah.
And so, so these enlarged plans were really where we were trying to nail all the constraints. So we're thinking about circulation, we're thinking about, how far does someone's foot go out into the aisle, and is there a way that we can kind of design around that so we still maintain those clearances? We're also thinking a lot about seat pitch. So as JP mentioned earlier, the seat pitch, the kind of space between the seats has become super, super cramped. Sometimes it's 29 inches, and so we wanted to at least allow for, between 31 to 36 inches to create, a more kind of comfortable sense of space while you're flying. And, one of the ambitions that we all had was to really think about the atmosphere and the design of the interior. And I mentioned our partner at Collins Aerospace, Glenn Johnson, who you might think would be really focused on just the technical aspects of the drawing, was actually super into the design. We had a lot of conversations about it. and he was sending us crazy references like Sid Mead and Ralph McQuarrie.
We later found out he went to the Royal College of Art, so it made sense later, but yeah.
But we really wanted to think about this, premium economy class as a space that really could be highly designed, and also start to consider how we weave in some architectural details. And so, I sort of hate this word, but we really wanted to kind of, we wanted the cabin to have this sort of luxurious quality and, use light to create a sense of intrigue and, try to make the overall experience a little bit more human and welcoming. And then one of our key moves was this kind of architectural cove detail that would cast light on the cabin ceiling and on the bin. This is with people and chairs. So there's one consolidated super bin in the middle rather than two bins on each side, which hopefully makes the cabin feel a bit more spacious and open as you're kind of moving through it. It's sort of a section of a section, but this is the long section of the cabin. And we picked up on the 1970s Caravelle reference that Glenn had pointed us to here.
That rounded triangular window.
And this shows the kind of herringbone seating, the central aisle of seating that's sort of alternating in that herringbone pattern. And, really we thought that in conversation, we thought that the window seats might be maybe a bit more comfortable or create a little bit more privacy. And so, we wanted to explore some ideas for creating a bit more of a buffer between those window seats and the central aisle. And so that's something that we're still iterating on. So this is very much in progress, what we're showing you today. And so really, if it's not clear from the image, the intent that we all had was to try to make the overall kind of experience feel more like a lounge or something you might see in a hospitality space than in a kind of conventional...
A supermarket atmosphere, with the blue lights and, yeah.
Right.
It does go back to the sort of age of luxurious travel in some ways, to make it a more exciting and comfortable experience.
And so we're really still refining the materials and the representation of the project as it stands. It's something that we're still working on, but we're really looking forward to trying to sync up our provocation, which is really about how we create this first-class experience for everyone, with our proposal. And the other thing that we've been talking about is that we're trying to think about this not just as an academic exercise that only happens here at the university, but how do we use this as an opportunity to engage in conversation with industry partners, and we're right now 2 months away. We're working toward the submission for the Crystal Cabin Award, which has a kind of goofy name.
I know,
but
it sounds like Snow White or something. We thought it was a joke when we first came across it, but it was confirmed by our industry partner who's won it numerous times. So he's been a really influential advisor on how to put together a package for submission.
And so really that's where we're working toward. We also intend to submit it. We've been submitting it to present at national conferences, and really this is sort of the beginning in a way, but we have reached a sort of milestone as a group, having been working on it for the last year or so.
Under your good leadership, I have to say. You kept us all in order.
And Jean-Paul, would you like to share any final thoughts here?
No, I mean, it's been great. I mean, I'm looking forward to the Crystal Cabin Cup. It turned out really amazing. So I think this could be we could have a big impact on the world of aerospace, and that's a great thing in my mind.
Agreed.
And yeah, and also the theme of this kind of collaboration of the series, we we had quite an enjoyable time working together as a group. So I just want to also take a little bit of time and thank Professor Catterall and Professor Clark for being involved in the project. And also a huge thanks to Raha Shavasian. Seriously, she put so much work into this over the last year. And so it's been really incredible having her on the team. And so she should be just as proud of all of this as we all are.
This was my honor working.
Okay. And with that, perhaps we can open it up to questions, feedback, comments from the audience. I'll do my best to answer any engineering questions, but I might toss that over to JP.
Do.
I'll start. And Rita, it's mostly for you, but I think for all. So in the School of Architecture, we all have, our faculty and our students have the notion of a client. We get that. But you had a different kind of relationship because you're working with industry. So you mentioned they externalized your competence or whatever that was. But in some ways, Collins isn't a client per se, because Collins is actually the person who makes the interiors for American, Delta, United, everybody else. So it's not, there's this other gap. And so I'm just wondering,
It's true.
did
Yeah.
working with Collins shape in any sort of specific ways, not just the way you thought about this project, but the way you might think about design as a whole?
That's a really nice question. Yeah, it was funny because whenever Glenn joined, he sort of just radiates this excitement in general, and so he got really, really excited about our project. And I think for me, my understanding of him joining and having more conversations with him was validating in the sense that he has seen many different aircrafts and sort of has a read on what's going on in the aircraft industry. And so I trusted that I trusted his confidence in it and that he sees it as something that's viable. You're right that Collins isn't a client by any means, but it really was more like thinking about how, obviously people working in the industry have such a kind of in-depth read about what's going on and what opportunities there are and what the kind of pain points are and what the issues are, and perhaps like a forward-reaching sort of perspective on where the design of aircrafts are going. And so that was really my take on it. What do you think?
It was great
Kate?
in
Yeah.
terms of accelerating our research and verifying what we had already discovered in some ways and bringing a lot more material, research material to the table. But I don't know that we'd have felt as confident, or you would have felt as confident about putting it forward for the award.
Yeah.
If he hadn't come in and said, here's what you need, here's the checklist, you're almost there, but you need to up this on your lighting, it needs to be more evocative, it needs to have depth and texture, add textures here. And, he was pretty good at guiding those steps, and I think you'll feel confident submitting it as a
Yeah.
result.
I think that the other thing is when and you mentioned the word client, really it felt like we were sort of designing for everyone in a sense. It sounds so cheesy, but we really are trying to understand this as maybe a different kind of experience for people that obviously air travel is already kind of a luxury experience in itself. But with a kind of modest increase in ticket price, perhaps someone could have this level of comfort while they're traveling that they might have not had access to before. And so that was really kind of what was motivating us. So in a way, we were thinking about clients in a very general way. We were thinking about who would want this kind of experience. Personally, I mean, having spent a lot of time on Spirit Airlines, flying into Newark, then taking the train to get to Grand Central Station and paying for bags, this is something that I could see could be very appealing for people.
So the idea of affordable luxury sort of drove the project. Ideally, it's for absolutely everyone, but I think we had some reality checks along the way that perhaps it will not replace EasyJet, Spirit, and Ryanair anytime soon, but it would be nice if it did.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, please, yeah.
I have a question about how you guys considered like group travel, like even more than one person. It seems like it was really focused on individuality and like having that privacy. But if like me and Heidi are going on a flight together, like how are we facilitating like group travel? Is something that I would love to hear about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Kate, do you want to?
I think we were very concerned with that in the iteration with the train format. That really drove that that particular iteration, and in this iteration, it's considering the individual a little bit more. Although the centre herringbone sort of puts people in a long line, and you could, if you're traveling with a partner,
Yeah, we
sort of
imagine if
converse.
you're wanting to travel with a partner or with your family, that you could, have 3 seats in a row, maybe in the central aisle rather than
Yeah.
the window seats, for instance, because you would still have that adjacency. You wouldn't be exactly next to each other, but you would be still within reach and could talk to each other.
Hand-holding range, which is important for parents. You need to be in hand-holding range.
You mentioned about reducing like the overall weight to make it more like sustainable and justify reducing the seat capacity in the aircraft. Did you calculate how much it would reduce the total weight of the aircraft? Because I know like airlines would, in narrow body aircraft like 737, they would rather pack in as many people as they could compared to long haul airplanes like the 777. Because I know like Air New Zealand and Virgin Atlantic have the herringbone style, but mostly on first class. And also you mentioned it's like fixed pitch, not
The central aisle would be. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. JP, did you hear that question?
Yeah, I think there was I heard
Oh no. The question was the question was about I'm going to butcher this, but the question was about basically calculating the difference in weight between a kind of conventional 150 passenger airplane and then this proposal, which is honestly not a calculation that we've done just yet, but I do think it would be something that we could potentially do as a way to validate the proposal for
And we were
in the
leaning
future.
on
well, you should probably take off 150 kilograms for everyone because the seats, we assume everybody weighs 100 kilograms, which is a bad assumption for people like me. We would probably think the seats would be less than 50 kilograms. So, even with, slightly, you'd probably take off 150 kilograms for everybody who's not on the plane.
So it was more of an approximation based on JP's insights and Greg's insights. But it's a 4-hour flight plane, so we were it has to be comfortable for that period of time. It's not a transatlantic, so it's not a long haul. So those criteria were important as well. Oh, and also there were other mitigating factors such as costs on the ground, getting people on and off. So it was trying to configure all of those things together to see where weight and time and other factors could be brought to bear on reducing the cost, both the environmental cost and also for the airline.
Please go ahead.
You just spoke actually about reducing the time it takes for changing over between flights. I'm wondering if you considered at all, I know there's a lot of airport expansion right now because of the limited slots that airports have for flights. So, like, how would this proposal fit in with places that maybe don't have space for extra flights or more turnover?
For extra flights or more turnover.
Yeah, I heard that one.
Did you hear that? Please take it away.
Clearly, we're thinking about a premium product for folks, and I think this would be not necessarily, yeah, clearly if ever had every flight replaced by this, then you'll have less, for limited capacity, you'd have to have less people traveling. You may envision, for example, people upscaling or upscaling flights. So instead of flying, you know, a 175, which is an Embraer, you might fly one of these in place of that. So it will be upscaling from the bottom end, and so overall you might get more people traveling, as opposed to less people traveling. So, the Embraer 175 and 185 and 190s. So the twin aisle one, the twin seats on each side, you could upgrade to this from that on some of the routes that are, the 1,200 to 1,500 nautical mile routes, which are the 3-4 hour routes. So it will be a bigger product with more space, so you could get more people in, but with a better quality.
So it's just balancing all of those things to get a better experience and a more sustainable experience.
Actually, JP, this one's for you.
Yes.
Because I know what kind of mathematical modeling you do. What's the actual reduction of load or unload time for people getting on and off? Because that is, it's that gate time. Instead of a 737 where you're budgeting on the ground maybe half an hour to load and another 20 to unload if you're lucky. Doesn't really work that way often. But if you can get people on and off faster with a actual metric, you actually gain the gates because the jet's at the gate less.
Exactly. So you could probably get right now we tend to schedule, if you run a tight ship, an hour and 5 minutes or so at the gate. My rough calculations that I've done on this suggest you could get it down to about 45 minutes, which would make a big difference in terms of, you'd be gaining, and it'd be more reliable 45 minutes. So not all 45 minutes are created equal. And so you could actually then get a much more better gate utilization over there. So your intuition there, Alan, is spot on that, gate time is a big constraint. And there are a lot of airports that are gate poor, Austin being one of them.
It would help Austin.
Would airlines also have to change their procedures for getting people on and off of the planes? Like, would the order of the boarding groups change? Because the herringbone pattern means that people's legs are going to be in the way, and planes being loaded, front to back is maybe not the most efficient. So would the procedures change as well?
We have, it turns out that we have many different boarding procedures. At one point, Lufthansa was boarding windows first, and then middle seats, and then aisle, going from the back inside of like a pyramid scheme. So,
that's how I imagine this one.
You could envision people boarding windows first, and then doing the herringbone from front to back. There are lots of strategies. I mean, that would be a definite follow-on sort of operational design question, which is the optimal boarding procedure. But people's legs only stick out if they actually stick them out.
Yeah, if they're stretching out. So that's actually a constraint we designed
if
for.
you're sitting normally, not to have your feet in the aisleway. And there's an option that we looked at for having a slightly raised walkway, so that the toes of your feet could sit under the aisle, which would be another visual sign, or at least a haptic feedback to not stick your leg out into the hallway as well. So there's some tweaks that we can do around that, but the fact is that we're designing so that your legs can stay within the area. And the aisles you see here are way wider than the traditional 16-inch aisles that you have on the airplane.
We decided against the raising and lowering just because of tripping hazards potentially. But the width of the aisle, I think, does it permit a regular wheelchair rather than changing into the smaller conveyance to get onto the aircraft? I can't remember if we got it down that far.
I'm not sure. I would need to check on that, to be honest. test, I think it's landed right around like 22 to 24 inches
Which is,
for the
it's the
aisles.
regular wheelchair rather than the 16-inch one that we use now.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, I thought so, which is great.
It's gonna feel a lot really roomy walking down that aisle. Oh, but and
Except if
one
someone
thing to
sticks their
mention
leg
is
out to
like
trip you.
broad shoulders,
Yeah.
And you sit in the aisle, everybody knows that people walk with their knapsacks and other bags and basically take out your shoulder as they go by. So one of the things that we were trying to do is to avoid a lot of that as well.
Yes, so the child that sits behind me, whose seat is he supposed to kick? No, I'm just kidding. But in seriousness here, did y'all do any research into people's perception of sitting at this strange angle that they've never sat at before, and it may be detrimental to the airline. People they're so used. I'll just think of it as I ride Capital Metro every day. The people who sit parallel to the flow of traffic versus the perpendicular. As soon as the seat comes, people turn because they like sitting forward. I remember Southwest used to have the lounge, and it seems like no one ever sat with their back to the front of the airplane. And the other concern would be is if the G-forces and landings, if there's any kind of a muscular skeletal concerns that when you land, you don't get the hit you don't get the buffering of a seat that you might get in the herringbone.
So two things. One is actually it turns out that sitting backwards in an airplane is way safer than sitting frontwards. But let's not get into that discussion. But the herringbone, we actually have that in many business class airplanes already. And they've actually done the analysis. The only thing that you have to have for landing is to have a shoulder harness, which pulls out of the seat. And we envision that being the case as well. So in addition to the lap belt, there will be a shoulder harness. That's a thing like you have in your car. So we do have this herringbone in the business class seats already.
There's another question, Ria, please.
So this is not a big percentage of travelers, but there's some parents that they bring their baby car seats into the aircraft, and then they have to tie it into the seat. How would this happen in this setup when the parent can't sit next to the baby? And also tying the car seat onto the seat.
Bassinet configurations would be, slightly different. But the car seat, what age of child are you talking about? Are you talking a baby that needs a bassinet, or are you talking?
1 year old or less, they
Okay.
put their baby car seat into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Do it up to 4 years of age in the full suite.
I'm getting old. My children weren't able to do that. But up to 1 year old, they're on your lap and you're holding them.
Up to 2 years old.
Up to 2 years old, they're on, right. Okay, so, and then the seat would be on the herringbone adjacent, proximity to, and lock in whatever way that it would typically.
These seats are right next to each other. So
Yeah.
there's a change in orientation, but the adjacency is still there. You can still reach over. It's just a change in orientation.
And the cross belt would maybe be a problem. So perhaps sitting in the larger seat and parent opposite on the aisleway. Yeah.
What are the acoustics like? What are the acoustical treatments? And I know that the rows, I feel like going to the baby situation, if I sit in the front and there's a baby crying in the back, I may not hear it as loud, but if I am, there seems like the rows have kind of disappeared in a way. So how do you account for acoustics and noise while traveling?
Well, I think we would have to get this built, and then we could do an empirical study on acoustics in order to answer your question fully. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that you can deal with acoustics. Maybe one thing that we're considering in the design that is a little different is how, that a lot of the materials are quite soft. Like even, these seats have maybe more upholstery than you'd normally see. in, you know, like a regular airplane seat. So I imagine like that will definitely help. And then there's other strategies that we can think about that might also reduce the amount of sound travel within that
I think the
space,
next phase would be researching sound dampening light materials that were also sustainable. So there's going to have to be research into materials that align with the ethos of the project.
Yeah, good question.
So, what was it? So may I?
Yo, please
what was the
jump in,
question-
JP.
What was the question again? Can you repeat it? Was this sound traveling down the?
Yeah, basically how the acoustics might change in this new configuration.
It's not going to change too much. If you think back to the Airbus 340-500, the configuration that Iberia used to fly, it was literally you could stay at the front of that airplane and look all the way down to the back. And this is a wide body, and the acoustics were not significantly different than the other 340s, where they had bulkheads slipping things along the way. So with the as you guys said, the materials are soft enough, and you do actually have with the lift for the what we call it light shelf, and there you have a lot of edges, especially soft edges for diffraction that will kill the acoustics transmission.
On the light code, is that what
Yeah.
We have
Any
time
other?
for one more question.
She had her hand up.
Sure.
Hi,
Hello.
I would like to know more about like the process or like what factors you guys were like looking into to pick this specific layout instead of the other 5 you guys were proposing.
Yeah, I could maybe take that one. I mean, the one thing that we were really thinking about was the sort of lack of privacy that you experience typically, and how most of the time you might be seated, unless you're traveling with family or with a partner, you might be seated next to a stranger, right? Even if maybe you're traveling with family or a partner. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to prioritize was a sense of privacy. Also thinking about definitely like the 2 aisles, increasing the kind of flow throughout the cabin and the amount of circulation needed. And so that was another thing, that there was this like very clear sense of circulation on each side, which allowed people to kind of board faster and that sort of thing. And then the other thing that we looked at was orientation. So we found that in this herringbone pattern, opposed to some of the other ones, there was actually a greater sense of just kind of like more buffering between each person's kind of view in the cabin. And so rather than being kind of like oriented and perpendicular to each other, which is one of the configurations that we also looked at, we felt that this kind of alleviated that sense of being like stared at. And so that was another thing that led us to choose this particular scheme. Kate, can you think of?
I'm just thinking more of the experience of being on the plane. You've sort of covered that, but we had received the award from a sustainability perspective, and so we had to consider what might be, how do we gain points in that area from materials, from less fuel being used, from speedy boarding and getting folks off the plane. And then also just the sort of the whole dignity thing, which has been stripped from air travel recently. We wanted to amplify that again.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks.
We're
Okay.
at time, but I want to thank each of you very much. This has been a great presentation.
Thank you. Okay, all right. And thank you so much for joining, JP.
Please clean up for yourself, but your plates and your food are compostable.
Okay, I'll see you soon, okay?
So take out your
Okay,
trash.
bye.
You guys made it here. Are you taking courses in architecture?
Bell sent us like the email.
Yeah, because I'm in the School of Architecture.